And good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We're going to hopefully, and we hopefully, I was going to say, we hopefully see you, Liam, but you're there in the top right-hand corner.
Thank you, Tag.
Are you well?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yes, really good, and
Good.
really good to see you. I know that we've got a few more people joining, but we're going to make a start. And I think we're going to be talking about probably what is a very much a hot topic for us at the moment, which is, or for this sector really, which is around financing and money's ever tighter. But in the first instance, Liam, it would be great if you could give us a bit of an introduction about yourself and where you work.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tag. So my name is Liam Doyle. I work for Apple Financial Services. So we're Apple's own vendor finance program. I'm one of the sales managers and the lead for the education channel. So I work with Tag and the rest of the team at Academia to talk with customers about how AFS can help them to fund their tech projects and how we can make leasing a little bit different. That's my
Awesome. Role. Yeah. So AFS, just I know mentioned, but Apple Financial Services. So we use AFS because it's much shorter. I guess it's a bit like Tag and Tom Abel Green. So I am Tag, long surname. I'm the UK Education Solutions Manager for the Academia Group. My role is very much around strategic leadership, and that morally and ethically, our proposition to our customers is in the best way supporting them, really. So we're going to talk finance, Liam, and I guess we'll move on to the next slide, which will be coming through. And I think the agenda will be loosely based around what we're seeing on the screen. But I guess funding in the education system and sector is still a really hot topic. And the reality is, we know it's been tough for many years. I think the importance around dispelling the myths around financing are important. The great options that we know are available to customers to fund technology projects, and I think if we can help dispel some of the myths, then the funding options that are available suit lots of people. There's different mechanisms, and how we can look at funding shared devices and one-to-one schemes. And I guess a conversation that's happened in many of the webinars really is around changing the mindset around how we move forward, and we've never been in a better place to change the way things are being done. The opportunity is a positive time to be changing, despite all of the negativity around obviously COVID. And I've just realised, rookie error, that the agenda order is not the way that the slides are going to appear. So go figure. Liam, are you there still?
Taking everyone through the fine details of terms and conditions around a finance agreement, because nobody wants to hear that at this time in the afternoon. Although rather sadly, I do know all of those clauses off by hand, but I won't admit that outside of this group.
So funding's a really hot topic, right? It's, I think, more so than ever, we look at ways in which we can support school or customer projects, and they range everything from I guess classroom solutions through to mobile one-to-one learning solutions. The reality is, funding is weirdly still really tough for schools, despite there being a big push from the DfE to move to mobile solutions. I found a stat the other day, which was in sixth form, funding since 2010 has gone down by 21%, and school funding has slumped to between 8 and 9% over the same period of time. Have you seen those conversations with education customers with you, Liam, certainly in the last 4 to 6 weeks?
As you said earlier, Tag, I think there's never been a better time to talk about affordability and flexibility. We're absolutely here to help customers to mobilize both their students and their staff to get them the equipment that they need, but also for that to be underpinned by an agreement that they're in control of and that Apple are in control of, essentially, because we've reimagined leasing from the bottom up to really make it work. I think customers are looking for us to help them to design new flexible finance solutions and also address this need now, and that's looking more like a longer term change of distance learning and of course remote working as well. Yeah, very, very topical.
Yeah, and I think the conversation actually in the last few weeks has moved even further or faster from how do we fund things quickly now, and make best use of the financing that we've got available, funds that we've got available, to actually we're looking ahead as far as maybe September and October, and I've been talking to some universities who are already planning that students may not even be back in 2020 because of some of the implications of what might happen if they do. But to be able to do that, they're having to certainly bring projects forward to be able to kind of support that remote teaching and learning. And I think historically, and we'll touch on this a bit later on, is that devices in the education space have probably lived longer than their shelf life, and so what we see is that I guess what we see is that devices become I guess not usable, or they become they're not fit for purpose. But actually, it also affects teachers, which is really important. What are you seeing in terms of leasing requirements at the moment specifically? Are you seeing anything outside of hardware? So the traditional mobile technology?
Yeah, so the services behind it that, of course, academia and partners are able to provide, that's incredibly important, and software as well. We're seeing a lot of software licenses and packages that help both students and staff to do their courses. If we can wrap that all into our agreements alongside any accessories, I think you mentioned it earlier, that people need to get devices out there to people really quickly, and that's what we're able to help them to do. And why not underpin that with a really attractive option on finance, and giving that full control to customers.
And I think, and we'll touch on it later on, but when we look at the funding element, is one of the things that we've certainly seen a rise in is that the requirement to spend funding on faculty requirements or building requirements maybe actually is going to change that landscape, because actually there's not so much of a need to have that funding in place for that. And actually, where we've seen staff cuts historically take a priority, sadly, over the purchasing of other elements that are required in a schooling environment or further education environment or whatever, is actually that we're going to be able to empower schools, colleges and universities to be able to use the funding more wisely, which means that in terms of staff cuts, actually that might not be a solution they need to go down. But it also gives them the flexibility around the types of employment. So one of the things that we were talking about the other day on a webinar, where I was talking to James, who's our technical director. In fact, as a business now, I think one of the probably only barriers that we see from an employment perspective with an individual would actually be really a time zone element, because the ability for us to be able to work as a business remotely is in place, and we can empower our employees, but also the support that we're able to give to our customers. Right? I think we're seeing that across the board.
Yeah, and same here, Tag. Absolutely. The customers we're talking to and the business that I work in, we've had to do a lot to mobilize our employees, and we want to make sure that they've got the access to only the very best that will enable them to do their jobs as most efficiently as possible. And of course, that extends to distance learning.
Yeah. So going back to that comment about having the very best, it's interesting. 1.1 million computers in the education space at the moment are classed as ineffective, which I touched on earlier. An average of that is in every primary school, that's 24 devices, and in the secondary school, that's about 126 devices. Now, the reality is we live in a world where we live, I guess, it's instant gratification. And we probably, as a human race, on a consumer level, we actually subscribe to some sort of program, right? So people lease a car, and that's quite a common thing these days. In my household, we subscribe to Netflix, and I think you do too, Liam.
I do.
But if Netflix goes down, and my 17-year-old daughter is pretty quick at asking why that might be the case, and likewise with Amazon, the shopping facility and having a same day or next day delivery is also probably a deciding factor for how we shop, because if we can't get something the next day, I know it sounds like a first world problem, right? But if we can't get something the next day, we might not even purchase it, which is great in some ways, but actually we've become dependent on having that immediate service. And then as a family, we also subscribe to a toothbrush service. I know it sounds really weird, right? But just for the record, you cannot traditional or the normal plastic toothbrushes, you can't recycle those. So as a business, we have the ability to as a home, we have the ability to subscribe to this service, and we get it delivered. I know that you can subscribe to haircuts. There's lots of weird things that we do. Now, if any of those stop working, we sort it out. In the education space, if 1.1 million computers, a third of computers, are classed as ineffective, why do we not try and do something about that? It's a bamboo toothbrush. There you go.
I will be looking into that. Yeah, I mean, in the education technology market, we're certainly seeing that move away from that ownership model. So where people have previously and customers have always purchased as capex, capital expenditure, that they're now looking towards a different model. And let's talk about a subscription tool or a lease plan model.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you can still hear me as well.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, no problem.
That's perfect. Yeah, and education technology is exactly the same. Customers are realizing actually there's some real power behind a OPEX model, a leasing option, giving them that full control as to when they want the devices, how long do they want them to be used for, and that stops technology obsolescence, because the years can pass and that technology comes out of date very, very quickly. So yeah, it's a change that we are seeing each and every day.
Yeah, and going back to those methods that you talked about, Liam, one of the things that we often have conversations with our customers around is that actually there are various models of funding that are available. So obviously we've moved on to the slide where we can talk around the leasing options are there, which is obviously the reason we've got you here, Liam, is your expertise. But maybe just talk around some of the leasing options that are available.
Yeah, absolutely. So what Apple have done this, I mentioned it earlier, is we have reimagined leasing and financing, and we're doing it the Apple way, as anybody would expect. A very clear, very different and very transparent. We want to break the mold and be disruptors in this market. And it's a very well-established industry. Apple Financial Services is mainly underpinned by what's unique about Apple, which is the future value of their devices and their equipment, also known as the residual value, much, much higher than other manufacturers. And actually, that enables us to put some really compelling financial structures available to our customers. We're also not here to make money from the finance. I often say to customers that although Apple have the net worth to be a bank, that they're not. Their interest is to make sure that their customers and students and staff only have the very best and latest devices from Apple. And Apple Financial Services is the perfect route to achieving that. So we have fair market value options. So that's leveraging that residual value upfront to provide a significant discount in the rentals over the period of the lease, which could be anywhere between 1 year and 4 years. And we also have a single upfront payment model, also known as a bullet lease. It's not that exciting, but it's a single payment right at the beginning, and that really helps to offset an even better discount against the rentals, because any risk is mitigated. So we're trying to weave the story around AFS into Apple and Apple in education, and really move it away from the word leasing towards a device lifecycle strategy and a managed refresh option. We've also got some on the back of the COVID-19 health crisis. Customers approached us with a need to have real flexibility around short-term financing, and we've implemented some options there that allow customers to walk away from an agreement, say after 6 or 12 months, without any penalty. Simply hand back those devices. If your landscape, your organization looks different, you don't have as many students as you anticipated, those devices can simply be handed back or continue through the full term of the agreement with some really preferential options. So that's just some of the things we've got. I mean, we've got, I won't talk to you about them all because we'll be here till midnight, but we've got a million different options. And that's really our message around AFS is it's really flexible. We love the opportunity to talk to customers around what's happening in your organization. How can we help you to achieve it? And we'll use some of our many options to pull together a bespoke and compelling financial structure for you.
And I think it's fair to say a couple of things is we'll show just later on in the conversation just kind of what a document looks like, so people can actually understand kind of what you've been saying and where the savings can be made and how it works. It'd be interesting actually. I'm going to launch a poll which is just asking our listeners really about whether people are currently using leasing to fund their projects. So hopefully people we'll be able to see that now, and so I guess take your pick, right? It's very simple. Yes, we do use leasing, and the answer could be no, we don't use leasing, or it might be that actually we use it to lease certain products but not technology. I'm hoping people can see the poll, so it'd be great to get some feedback on that. In the meantime, whilst that's going on, what I would also ask is, I guess from a business perspective, have you seen, Liam, a massive increase only because of COVID in terms of leasing, or have you seen it? I've seen it build over the last sort of 2 years, 18 months, maybe.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We've seen an increasing level of interest in a different financial model, but that I think so you mentioned it earlier, Tag, that customers are looking to possibly bring forward their procurement projects, given that we're not sure when maybe the students will be able to return to the premises. So is there the need now to get devices out to students wherever they are so they can continue their academic journey? And I would say yes, but yeah, this has been a trend away from that ownership towards that OPEX model over the last couple of years. And Apple Financial Services have continued to see and support ever more customers, colleges, multi-academy trusts, schools, private schools, universities with quite significant spends and projects. And we've been able to help them to utilize Apple's guaranteed residual values to really pull together some great pricing and an attractive option.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned also there that there's various types of establishments. So we talked about the public schools, or I say private independent schools. You've got your state-based schools, and actually what should be really made clear is that there are different funding models available to each of those elements, to each of those businesses, right? So a traditional state governed school only has access to an operating lease. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, without the Secretary of State approval, which I think we can all agree would never happen. So that would be a very painful process. An operating lease is underpinned by a residual value, and that school won't be the eventual owner of the asset at the end.
Okay.
We have options for that, but we also have other options, such as hire purchase agreements that allow the ability for guaranteed ownership, but enables the cost of acquisition to be spread over time.
Yeah.
So that's available to other institutions.
And I think the other thing that we've certainly seen a rise in actually around some of the school that are asking us around the funding models is actually what they're seeing is the ability to use some of the funding they get for bursary funded students or pupil premium funding as well is being looked at in a slightly different way. Traditionally, what they've done is probably taken it from those areas to use to cover salaries, which has not been great, or to cover other areas. I think what is a really clear conversation from our point of view, and what I know we'll talk about this in when we talk about the dispelling the myths, is from a sustainability point of view. If you are able to plan sort of 2, 3, 4 years in advance, knowing that your lease schedule will cover pretty much everything you need from an IT technology perspective, it allows that freedom to then look at the budgets in other areas with knowing that there's not going to be hopefully any hidden agendas. And when we talk about one of the answers, somebody said that they do lease for non-technology stuff. Actually, we've seen the ability for institutions to fund the infrastructure elements that are required as part of an ongoing program. And so again, it's moving away from what people think the traditional lease should be used for, right? And I guess from that perspective, it just means that planning is essential, and we talk about that quite a lot.
Yeah.
In terms of myths, leases are really bad, I heard.
I've heard this as well, and I think in the past, well, I've heard this little rumor. I think in the past that has been the case in some cases, and we don't shy away from that. You know that actually there, many customers have entered into agreements in the past, maybe photocopiers, for example, and have found nasty surprises at the end because actually those finance companies are of course there to make money out of their finance, and sometimes what you can see is that customers are encouraged to what we call sweat the assets or continue usage of that lease for many months, if not years, after the sort of scheduled end date. There's hidden fees, complex terms, so yes, there is sometimes some nervousness around leasing, and that's why AFS have redesigned leasing. We've really removed all of those horrible terms and conditions that exist. It's a very, very clean contract that is very much in the customer's favor. And that's because this new era today is around helping customers to refresh to new devices. Don't sit on your old equipment, because what we'll do is we'll remarket those devices if they're handed back to us. We talked about sustainability a minute ago. That's a huge piece for us, being able to remarket in another market, sometimes overseas, and give those devices a second life.
Yeah.
And many customers are interested in that because it helps them to tick those corporate social responsibility and sustainable and responsible technology usage policies. Sorry, it was a lot of but
no, but and that's really, obviously the sarcasm around leasing is bad, but I think going back to the fact that we talked around the quantity of devices that are classed as ineffective. I think the reality is why are they ineffective is, as you've absolutely hit the nail on the head, is they get sweated out, those devices, because with all good intentions, traditionally an establishment will buy their devices and say, in 3 years' time, we're going to sell those devices off, and we're going to buy some new ones. But what happens is in those 3 years, things happen that are beyond control, which mean that when the devices come up for that refresh at the 3 year point, they actually say, well, we'll make them last another 2 years. And then at the end of the 5 year period, you probably see them go in for another 2 years. And I've been into so many customer meetings where, when we talk about the current legacy devices that they have, and they go, oh, yeah, they're we've replaced the batteries quite a few times, we've done this or that or whatever it might be, and they're 10 years old, and they're not running the latest software, so they're using what isn't essentially industry standard or sector standard software. They're using old operating systems that are the cause of the batteries not working and the devices not turning on. And how many times have we heard, oh, we have an IT lesson and it takes 20 minutes for the computers to boot up, and by that time the lesson's kind of over. And I think when we look at the pain points around maybe the financing options, is that some of those concerns stem from other problems that the institution has faced. So it's not directly because of leasing, but there is a fear that they're going to invest in something and then they're going to be hit with other issues. So it might not be the same issues they've had, but new issues. Awkward silence. What do you think? What do you think, Liam?
No, I no, absolutely, and I think those bad experiences that customers have had, and really when a lease does go bad is at the end, and that's why we've re-engineered it to make it work. We don't have customers sitting in the secondary rental period. We'll be talking to them well in advance, usually around 6 months, to ascertain what are their plans for refresh, and our messaging is always really clear. You as the customer are in control of your plan and an agreement. Let us know. There's these wonderful new Apple products that are available today. Would you like to speed up your upgrade process? Actually, these devices are worth more than they would be if you leave it for 6 months. Let's help to manage that refresh cycle.
Yeah.
The other point here, that we see is very complex documentation. So customers, I've like you, Tag, I've been into many customer meetings where they've explained the experiences they've had. They've showed us that the equipment that they are still using, and it's what we're trying to disrupt, and I think we're doing a good job. With us, what there's really I keep talking about the word flexibility, and sorry to harp on about it, but it is there, and it's there for a reason. At the end of our agreements, you've got every option available, so you can simply return that equipment and end the agreement. That there's no need to continue. You can return and look to refresh. So get rid of your old equipment. Let's look at new devices under a new AFS agreement. Or you can continue going for a short period on just a 30-day rolling notice period if you need additional time. We all know that sometimes project timescales slip and unforeseen issues derail or delay our projects. And you can even take ownership of the devices, of some or all of the devices if need be, by paying the fair market value. And that's the value that the device is anticipated to be worth at the time, at the end, and our asset management teams can provide that information. The other thing we can do is the white glove services. So we work with academia and to help you with the logistics and the handling. How do you return those devices? That could be quite a logistical challenge, and we're on hand to help you through that. By making, like I said, straightforward and clear, simple agreements.
And I think the other thing to add is that just because you may have a lease that's going on for sort of 3-4 years, is that if you're in year 2 of a project and you need to get a secondary lease, that is possible, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's our agreements are set up by way of a master rental agreement and schedule. So it's really, really easy to add additional equipment. Everything is electronically signed, helping to speed it up. And that means that we're not looking for the initial commitment that you can order by department, say, or by class sets. It makes it really easy. And those agreements can either run for their own full period, so say 2 or 3 years, or they can, it's not a very sexy word, but it's called coterminous agreement.
Yeah.
And that essentially runs alongside the master so that everything comes to an end at the same time. And we can do everything in between. So
and that's the important bit actually. Is that it is the bits in between that matter. I remember working with a head teacher in Essex, who I'd worked with across several schools he'd been in, but he did end up in a school where they absolutely needed to I guess to refresh their IT equipment, their infrastructure, and so on, and move to the cloud. And he came to me and said, "Look, I've got between 100 and 150,000 pounds that I spend over the next sort of 5 years, and let's put something together." I went in 2 weeks later, and he said, "Well, I've got an issue." And I kind of said, "Well, you probably got 80 grand, right?" And he said, "No, I'm 90 grand in deficit, and I've got to let go of 7 teachers." He'd gone into the school, only been there a very short time, and things had come about. And actually, what he was able to do was to continue. He knew he needed to continue with the refreshing of the technology. And we set out a plan that over 3 or 4 years, he would have a lease every year that would allow him to target the key elements of what he was trying to refresh. knowing that eventually he would break even and be back to where he needed to. But the reason he did the leasing was because he was able to structure and understand and plan the budgets accordingly, knowing that he could get to that point and get that measurement of success that he was looking for. So it is knowing about, as you've rightly said, what happens at the end of that agreement. For all intentions, maybe at the end of 3 years you want to stop and refresh, but actually that comes up and you do go an extra year because you can. We work 6 months ahead of schedule, don't we, in terms of what that end of life journey might look like for a customer. So there's plenty of time to plan, and it's just about knowing what's available to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really interesting point about the budgets as well, Tab, because the other thing that we can do is match the repayments with the budget cycle. So if there needs to be have a device now but not pay for it for 3 months or until the start of the academic year, possibly around fee income, then we can incorporate all of that. That matching budget is incredibly important. And yes, you can spread it out over a number of years or different lease agreements.
So that's really important. I know it's going to be quite hard on the screen at the moment to see the master rental agreement, but I thought we would just kind of showcase what this looks like. You won't be able to read the small print, but
that's okay. I'll tell everybody all the clauses.
Yeah, please do.
We won't do that. Our point here, we have reimagined the lease contract. So this is our master rental contract, which is just a 3-page contract with terms and conditions really geared to the favour of our customers. Like we said earlier, it's all electronically signed, so it's very easy, very secure, helps to speed up the process, and our end of term and return conditions are really greatly improved. Really, again, it's to show that everything is very, very transparent and clear and straightforward, exactly as you would expect from working with academia and with Apple.
Great. I think the next document actually, which we're going to just show, is kind of where savings might be. So we've done some rough numbers, and so don't look at these numbers and think they're gospel. But we just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what you would see from our perspective if we were to send over a lease quote for you. So we've taken a 7th gen iPad, right? We've given it a unit cost of, if you were going to buy it ex VAT, it's £258, I think here, Liam. But talk to us about some of the important numbers in this document.
Yeah, so it does look like there's quite a few numbers on there. So I'll just explain the format of the quote. And again, that's around us being really transparent. We quote everything on a line.
It looks like Liam has lost sound.
I can hear you.
I can hear you now. Sorry, Liam, we lost you temporarily, I think.
No problem. I'll go again.
Go back to, there's lots of numbers.
Yeah, so quite a lot of numbers here, but again, our quotes are very transparent, and we do provide line by line quotations so you can see exactly what you're paying for. And on the left hand side is the cash price. This is what you would pay if it was capex. For the iPad, it's £258 in this scenario. Over on the right hand side, so this is based on a 3-year lease. There's monthly payments of just £6.47 for that iPad. Saving you 10% of the cost over the course of the lease. Or you can pay the single upfront payment, which is just £223.12, saving yourself 14% off the cost of the device, and that's still on a 3-year plan. We can also wrap in in this scenario with our lease. And like I said earlier, all of Apple's devices, iPad, Macs, and even iPhones, have a Apple guaranteed residual value. So there is a saving available versus the cash.
Okay. So when we go, I mean, just from my perspective, if you go into a leadership meeting and you say, well, an iPad's going to cost you £258, you start suddenly looking at that and saying, well, if I need to buy 30 of those or 50 of those, that number gets quite scary. But when you look at it from a monthly perspective, £6.47, yeah, okay, so your number's still the same, times 30, times 50, whatever. But it's very clear to know how you can maybe look at the planning and the other bits that you need for that project and get to that number. Because I think, well, one of the things that we've done on here is you've added, for example, if somebody wanted to have a ruggedized case, for an extra 63p a month, you can protect your iPads in a really suitable insurance approved case, right? Or for an extra, I'm just looking, £2.19, you've got the Apple Pencil as well. So it's really clearly laid out, right?
Absolutely. I think it's really, really, really clear. And many customers, they want to wrap in their accessories, but some customers just want to lease the devices and maximize the saving available for the guaranteed residual value, and that's also fine because this has to work for you, and that's our underlying message.
And I think the response to all of that is for our customers is that even if you've traditionally always done capex spending or capital spend purchasing, there is no obligation to getting a lease quote to understand what it might look like if they wanted to go down that road. I guess the next slide is really about kind of the academia offering. So I think the reality is what we know is that if customers are capital spending, that's fine. We have the subscription models open, and so you'll see here in below the piggy bank that we've got an all-inclusive bundle for a student, for example, at £9.70. And I think what we've included in this bundle is very much all of the things that we know would be necessary. So we're talking about the management device license cost. We're talking around the storage solution if you're going to have a storage solution. Talking around the funded support that's around professional development for staff or the whole package. And what it means is you can get a clear idea of shared devices, what that might look like versus a one-to-one scheme. The other model that we talk about, and certainly from an academia perspective, is the contribution model. Now, traditionally, the route has been for schools or education customers to go down an operating lease and then kind of work a scheme where there is a voluntary contribution from parents. So years ago, sort of 5-6 years ago, you could probably go down the route of probably £15-16 from a parent, and they would sign up to a scheme. The financial liability sits with the education establishment, and as a parent, I would voluntarily contribute. The key thing to that is that I have the voluntary option to not contribute, right? And the scary thing there is that the liability still sits with the institution. And I've worked with many customers who, over the period of a year, where they've had a cohort where they've bought 300-400 devices, maybe 25-35 parents at some point throughout that year group have chosen to stop paying. And whilst you can build an idea of that into the budget, what if all 300 or 400 people decided that they didn't want to contribute? You would have a real issue. So academia started our connected schemes, which is a portal system where we have the ability to offer device bundles, but working with the institution to their students, and there is an outright purchase available at discount, so the education discount, or they have the ability to apply for consumer credit, which is different from the offering from Apple Financial Services. And it's really a personal choice. We've seen a huge amount of success. We're probably one of the only channel partners in education that offer this sort of system. And what we're saying to our customers is there is absolutely the opportunity for you to do an operating lease as long as you understand the legal requirements for your perspective. Or there are contribution models where you can still go down the operating lease and you can take a contribution scheme, or there is a direct contribution scheme. And it's ultimately not a one-size-fits-all. It's about knowing what's available to you. And then lastly, we talk around the rental option. So we've probably seen in the last 6 weeks a massive influx for schools looking to buy second-hand equipment, and because they don't want to enter into a lease option. And you talked about your short-term options available, Liam. There are some rental models available where we can also support that. And I think what we would say is if that is the case, do reach out to us. We're there to support. My role is very much there to support what we do, in terms of giving you all the information that you need as a customer to make an informed decision. Sorry, Liam, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a really interesting point about the second-hand devices, because one of the other things that we can help you with is that there will be a value in the estate of technology that you have today, and actually we can help you to realize that value on a trade-in basis to help fund the acquisition of new devices, and that can work really, really well to help offset those costs. And we'd be happy to talk to you to provide, sort of indicative buyback pricing and what we believe that estate to be worth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that we'll touch on in a little while as well. The other thing that we wanted to just kind of be clear, I know this is very black and white, very simply laid out in a few steps, but it is pretty simple, the timeline of how a quote would work. Essentially, we talk about the customer having that conversation with academia, and us understanding what your requirements are, building that quote in step 2. We would then send it to you as a customer. It is a capital spend quote. You say, okay, now we'd like to get a leasing option. We then obviously involve Apple Financial Services. So Liam would come into that conversation. We're very transparent. We loop everyone into the email, and AFS create essentially the document that you saw in the previous 2 slides, which outlines the numbers based on the official quote that you've received from us. Again, at this point, there's no commitment to go down that road, is there, Liam? That's right. It's just here's the numbers. Yeah, I think they do their own talking, really. And then once the documents get signed, as Liam suggested, digitally, we live in that world of digital. We then get essentially the authorization from Apple Financial Services to say, yeah, go ahead. We've got everything we need. You can now supply that service and equipment to the customer. And we've put that refresh and go as a go again is really because the idea is you'll be able to do that refresh, and you can continue having your latest devices available to you. I haven't missed any steps, Liam, have I?
No, you haven't. The only thing to say is, you're of course in control of when that agreement begins. So the final documents to be signed is just to confirm that you've had everything and you're happy to go. So yeah, it's it's very like Tag said, it's very, very transparent, and we really do hope that easy and simple model will help us to refresh and go again. So I'll be using that.
Just a quick question. Let's say, as a customer, I got the delivery of that huge amount of IT that I needed, and then realized I needed another 6 devices. Can I ring you up, Liam, and just add that, or what's the...
Yeah, so if it's when before the agreement's already the new one's begun, we'll just add it into the lease. And we'll have to get the documents re-signed, but that's quite easy to do.
Yeah.
If it's slightly afterwards, say a month down the line, you realise you need another 6 devices. That's why we have the schedule to the master rental agreement to help you to add on additional equipment. And like we said earlier, that can either run for its full term or a coterminous lease.
Great, thanks. Thanks for that. Conscious of time, we talk about mindset quite a lot, and moving from a traditional way of teaching to a remote way. Remote teaching and learning is involves a change of mindset, but actually, the mindset around financing is a great route to creating what we call successful sustainability. You talked about the purchasing of old kit. As academia, we own a recycling business. So we last year in the K-12 market specifically, we gave back in excess of £180,000 back to schools based on buying old recycled kit and giving that funding back, which they then put into looking at leasing options and funding those projects that way. But talking about the expansion of technology, are you talking about scaling up, Liam? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. To help mobilize and to scale, to scale up and increase the amount of coverage and technology estate that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
And what
The
about,
sustainable angle, I think, is incredibly important at the moment. People are really keen to make sure that any technology is used responsibly, and if that technology can have a second life, I really think that helps us all to justify why we might look at a procurement exercise over a refresh.
yeah. It'd be interesting actually we've just launched a poll. Hopefully you can see it. It's about whether you consider leasing or contribution models as a method of funding your technology projects. I've been a bit blasé with the old answers there. So, yep, count me in. Nope, it's still never going to happen. It'd be interesting to know why that might be, actually, why people might not want to do something. But also, if you're interested and you want to find out a bit more, we'd be really keen to support that conversation. And I guess that leads us on nicely to the Q&A that we have. So there's a live Q&A. Feel free to ask us the question in the chat feature, which should be there in front of you, because we feel that certainly somebody said yes, count me in 100%. Look at that, that's amazing. But if you have got
that was me.
I was you.
That wasn't me.
It would be great if there are any questions actually that we might be able to answer. Ask away now, and again, if it's something that you want to do privately, we'll probably stay on for a few minutes at the end to do that. Liam, is there anything else in your mind that we might need to just make sure we've covered?
I think we've covered everything. I think really what to say it again, we love the opportunity to talk to customers, to find out what's going on in your school, in your institution, and there's no commitment there. We'll help to pull together some really good solutions once we understand what it is you're looking to achieve and what the challenges are.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'd say. And yeah, we're very happy to have any calls or WebExes. We'd love to have a face-to-face meeting, but of course that might not be happening for a while. So yeah, we're a available resource to help you to explore this option.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I'd like to add finally also is that as a business, academia is hugely invested in the work that we do with Apple, but actually we're multi-platform and we're open to lots of conversations. But what we do have in terms of the support around talking finances is that we run a planning essentials workshop that is based around looking at the key elements, including vision and strategy, which talks quite a lot around looking at a sustainable finance model that is going to suit you as an institution. We deliver that face-to-face. Normally it's a 2.5 hour, 3 hour workshop. We now are able to deliver that online virtually, so through the use of video conferencing, and we've done a few over the COVID period, and it's been hugely successful. And I think more than ever, the ability to attach that support as part of a decision-making process has been really powerful for our customers, and we can absolutely involve Liam and the team at AFS around those conversations so that you've got the answers that you need. Because I'll be very honest with you, there are times where I've been asked a question and I have no clue what I'm being asked, and the best thing I do is just go, here's Liam, he is the font of all knowledge, so feel free to share that.
Absolutely. And in return, if our customers often ask me about maybe a technical question about the device, and I have no clue, so I in turn chuck that back to Tag, and between us we make it work.
That's right.
I'd also just like to thank you, Tag, for your lovely emoji, because I think it's knocked at least 10 years off me. So yeah.
Oh, this one, yeah. Well, you know what? So, do you know that's the other thing I've seen a massive in rise in COVID is the use of Bitmoji, Animojis. I love them, and they're really, actually mine really looks like me as well, which is quite handy. So a huge thank you, Liam, for your time.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and I know that we'll probably get some follow-ups that we'll talk to you about. And obviously, again, what we'll do is we will leave the microphones and videos off now, but we are available for any Q&A that you want to do through the chat. And with that, what I will do is give you a wave goodbye. I will essentially play the outro video. I have to say there's been not many technical issues today, which has been great. And Liam, a genuine thank you again, and goodbye from us. Thank you.
Thank you.